Hello and welcome to this CNBC Africa special live broadcast from the Durban Indaba 2013. And today we're going to be unpacking the phrase "one city, endless possibilities," what it means to Durban and of course what it could mean to Durban. So today we're going to be taking a look at Durban's key assets. We're going to be critiquing its strengths and weaknesses, and then more broadly speaking about how Durban relates to other South African cities and how it can be used as a gateway into the African continent for businesses and of course to attract more tourists into the city. We'll also be talking about infrastructure today. We'll be taking a look at the plans for the new Dube Trade Port. Of course, it's classified as an aerotropolis, using an airport as a catalyst for investment and business investment and trade. We'll be talking about transport. We'll be talking about the SAA Express link, and then of course we'll be talking about the hotel and accommodation sector here in the city. Essentially, the focus today, how Durban can better use its assets to make more money and create more jobs. So on that note, I'd like to introduce you to my esteemed panel of guests. We're going to be breaking this debate up into two segments, and to kick off the first half, I'd like to introduce you to Graham Wood. He is the MD at Tsogo Sun. We've got Clive Manti, the head of South African Chamber of Commerce President. We've got James Seymour, the CEO of the Durban KZN Convention Bureau, and then Deputy Mayor of Durban, Nombuso Shabalala. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I'll start off with you today. So thank you so much for joining us, and of course it's been a good run in 2013 so far. You've hosted BRICS in March, and then we've had the Hotel and Investment Conference last week, and that of course the lead up to Indaba 2013, not new to the city, Indaba that is. Yes. But talk to us about how integral events have become to Durban.
Indaba has been very integral to Durban because it is one platform that the business people can leverage in terms of making sure that the interaction, the exposure of what they can offer in different areas. And for us as the city, we are very proud to host Indaba, and we are hoping that even the few years to come will continue. We know now that we are left with 2 years, but we are hoping that they will favor us when they deliberate in it to say where next Indaba is going, because we believe as Durban that we have a lot to offer.
So James, let's firstly talk about what Indaba has meant and who it brings into the city, because you bring in delegates from all over the African continent. They come here. It's obviously a business-to-business network. So from an events perspective, talk to us about the type of business that takes place here in Durban.
Well, essentially Indaba is what one refers to as being a leisure trade show. The purpose of the platform is really to bring together international buyers or international outbound operators, and to connect them with our local trade so that they actually ultimately conclude business. That's the real value of Indaba. But the economic impact of this event is considerable. Research has revealed that the total economic impact of this event over a 4-day period is well in excess of 200 million rand for the economy of Durban and the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
And of course that is why you're hoping to hold on to it at a key event like this.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. Clive, let's talk about Durban as it's positioned right now from, I suppose, the commercial perspective and the attractiveness of Durban. What is your assessment of Durban relative to other key cities as a place to do business right now? I mean, I suppose that is a very broad question because it takes so many different sectors into account. But when you look at Durban, how is it positioned in your mind?
Look, I mean, there is a scientific process that, as the South African Chambers of Commerce, we have undertaken to look at the competitiveness of the cities across the country, and that will tell a better and a more justified performance reflection of the city. As a business person, though, I think like this event, Indaba, it allows businesses benefit in many ways. And one of those is that it allows us as a platform that as a country we have an opportunity to engage on a country vision. We now have the NDP, which both government and business support, and a platform like Indaba gives us an opportunity to talk about what work do we need to do to realize that vision. But also it allows us an opportunity to do business, as James was saying earlier, is that it's a platform where international businesses and domestic businesses find an opportunity to build business relationships. But most importantly as well, which will be the third benefit really of an event like this, is that we leverage these events to promote local businesses, particularly small businesses. And I think having a lot more of these events will continue to benefit Durban as a city, as a market.
So from the private sector's perspective right now, I mean, Soho's son, has hotels across Africa. But let's talk more specifically about Durban right now, because looking at the latest numbers from the Tourism Ministry, certainly encouraging when you see that more than 800,000 visitors visited South Africa between January and October last year. So that's versus, of course, the previous year in 2011. So basically, tourism numbers are up in South Africa. From your perspective right now, are you seeing more tourists coming to your hotels in the city specifically?
Yeah, Durban has always been an incredibly important leisure destination. There's no doubt that prior to the World Cup, before the city had invested a substantial amount in upgrading of the promenade and the building of the Moses Mabhida Stadium, it's safe to say that the leisure business into Durban was stagnating. I'm happy to say that all the hotel operators have recorded growth in the leisure business post the World Cup. It's the one segment that has continued to show growth. But Durban is largely a domestic tourism destination. It does feature on the international map, but it's largely dependent on the domestic traveller. And that's where the efforts of Durban Tourism, TKZN, SA Tourism and ourselves as the private sector, how we come together to help promote the culture of domestic tourism in our country and help promote the culture of travel. Because the more we do that, then the more we're going to get people moving around our country and into fantastic leisure destinations like Durban.
So at this point in time, I mean, as you say, very much focused on the domestic tourist here in South Africa. Deputy Mayor, is that something that you're looking to focus on in terms of creating a broader reach for the appeal of Durban? Definitely. I mean, what is the strategy there to attract more tourists to Durban specifically from outside of South Africa?
Okay, because we also felt that we are not known all over the world, we took a step to say that it is us that we are responsible for marketing ourselves, and we entered into a relationship with the National Geographic to say that can we reach as many people as possible. And with that, we are reaching more than 360 million people across the world. And we are hoping that will give us some result that will attract more people from outside of our continent and also outside of South Africa, because we believe that if then people now start to knowing about where is Durban and what it has to offer, and we believe that we can be able to win.
But what about the quality of the accommodation when it comes, straight back to what the infrastructure to support increased tourism and I suppose the demands of foreign tourists? Do you think that Durban is up to standard?
It's world class. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the quality of accommodation and the infrastructure that exists in this city to be able to host major events, the international leisure traveller, international corporate traveller, big meetings, big conventions that the city has proven over and over that it's capable of hosting. And the hotel product is world class to support it. Absolutely no doubt.
So you're rating the hotel product, of course, of yours.
No, but not only ours.
But I mean, what I'm saying is that you see it up to scratch.
Yeah, what's very interesting, we'll probably talk about our investment into Durban at the Ilangeni and Marani, but about 3 weeks ago I took a drive from our properties down all the way to Ashaka and back. And there are rigs up and down buildings. Buildings are being painted. The hospital has been redone. The children's hospital has been done. There's a huge amount of infrastructure work going on in the city, both from private and public sector. And it augurs well because people are believing in the rejuvenation, and it's been led by the city. And it's very encouraging. So I think we're in great space.
Yeah. How much money, sorry, Deputy Minister, I'm just going to come straight back to you, because if you're talking about rejuvenation of the city, how much money is being spent on infrastructure right now and all these upgrades that we're talking about?
Okay, the infrastructure redevelopment that we have in the city is huge, and we are believing that once we invest in the infrastructure, it's the best thing to do. That's why we have invested almost 7 billion for the past 5 years to say that infrastructure like the Moses Mabhida, the Ushaga Marine, the prominent, and also the flyovers, because we believe that if we don't have the correct infrastructure in terms of transport, people won't be able to come to the city. So that is the reason, as the city, we believe that investment in the infrastructure alone, it's one of the best things that we should do so that we can attract more people to come to our city.
James, of course, you have to now look at Durban relative to other cities here in South Africa, other cities on the African continent, and more globally. What do you think Durban, when it comes to creating a leading events destination, needs more of? Where do you see areas room for improvement?
Well, Durban has performed exceptionally well in the business event arena. The facility that we're currently sitting in, the Durban ICC and Durban Exhibition Centre, has been rated as one of the top 20 facilities of its kind in the world. It's currently by far the best in Africa.
Yeah.
But in terms of improvement, we need to be constantly making your business event decision maker more aware of the wide range of other options that exist in our province and in our city. And Durban's very fortunate to have a number of excellent hotels that have very good meeting facilities. And there is a need for us to go after what is regarded as the smaller meeting, international meeting. And we're beginning to make inroads into that region.
Give us an example of that.
Well, a very good example is the Association of International Marathons that we'll be hosting next year, just prior to the Comrades Marathon. That particular international congress will not be taking place at the ICC. It will be taking place at the new Elangeni Maharani Sun, because it's an ideal event. It's relatively small, where economies of scale of using hotel rooms against a meeting venue works. And there are a number of examples, other examples. For example, we will be hosting the Retro Vale International Congress, a Roman Catholic related congress, as well as the International Coaching Congress at the Coastlands Umhlanga later this year. All of these events are raising the profile of Durban and giving it a better ranking.
So you're saying it's more marketing, that you just continue to communicate the message, but the city infrastructurally is ready to support these
without
meetings.
a doubt. We've hosted, Durban's been fortunate enough to host one of the world's most prestigious congresses, the Climate Change Congress, the biggest congress of its kind ever to be hosted in South Africa. We've also just won the right to host the International AIDS Congress for the second time. Durban is the only city other than Washington to host the International AIDS Congress on a second time. It's only one of 30 congresses that attracts more than 20,000 delegates, and Durban is the only city that has the capacity to do so.
Yeah. Certainly it sounds like a lot of positives coming out here. You know, it seems like everyone is committed, and there has been already a lot of money that's gone into infrastructure. But you, of course, brought up the National Development Plan, and we have to see Durban in the broader context of South Africa's socio-economic standing right now. Do you think that Durban is ready to respond to the needs of the National Development Plan, Clive?
Look, there are certainly programs that the city is running that align to the NDP. And I think that needs to be commended. The infrastructure rollouts that we see, which is critical if we're going to see this economic growth that we talk about in the NDP. Certainly there's a need for us to talk about because NDP really sets for us a framework of where we need to be as a country. But there certainly needs to be a discussion on what local economic plans need to exist to support the NDP. And as the South African Chambers of Commerce, through Business Unity South Africa, we engage quite extensively with the Ministry of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs through its agency MISA to ensure that at a local level, cities do develop local economic plans that align with the NDP. And that process needs to ensure that private sector say in the development of those plans is important. And that work that we do with the ministry is to ensure that we institutionalize the discussion between business and government about the development of such plans.
Give us some example, because I mean, it almost, it's easy to talk in these broad strokes and jargon. Give us some examples of how this is coming into fruition.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you take, for instance, that one of the things that we talk about in the NDP is cities providing efficient transport systems which support industries quite a great deal if we're able to move people easily to places of work. And that in itself says, how do we look at that sector to leverage it to promote local industries? So if you're looking at transport systems, if you're looking at the manufacture of buses themselves, those are the discussions that we need to ensure see their way into the local economic plans of cities. I mean, the other point that we often miss is the location of a city like Durban to take advantage of the development dividend in the continent of Africa, And I think those discussions need to happen, need to make their way through the local economic plans. If you look at a facility, for instance, like the Dube Trade Port, business has to get involved in saying, how do we leverage that facility to drive our aspirations in the continent and beyond the continent? Certainly, I mean, government has put that out as a project where they want to see a metropolis, and there's space for private sector to take advantage of those. In the aviation sector, can we be as aggressive as pursuing developing a local aviation industry? Absolutely, yes. But for me, I think what we haven't done enough is ensuring that at a local level, business has a big say in the development of those local economic plans, because it is business in the end that must drive those businesses.
How are you taking these comments from a government perspective and being able to understand what local business needs here to be able to spur the greater, broader plans of the South African economy?
In the city, we have partnership with the Growth Coalition, which is the business component within the city. And we have decided as the city, so that we also are in line in terms of the National Development Plan, that we will establish our own City Planning Commission, which is going to assist in making sure that in whatever that we do in terms of the planning and the businesses, we have the people that are already in the industry, so that they can help us as the city to make sure that our business, we don't falter in any way. So those are some of the processes that we are engaged. We are just going to complete the establishment of the City Planning Commission before the end of this month, which is May.
Does that sound like something that could work for the private sector and for businesses that you represent?
Absolutely. I mean, for as long as we create these structures not for the purposes of ticking the box and that we have appeased, social partners, certainly they work. I must say, though, I mean, I'm quite impressed with what Durban is doing. I know that the president of the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for an example, is a champion of this. As the chamber, they've produced an economic blueprint, and it's how that economic blueprint integrates with the plans that the city has. And I think through the structures that the Deputy Mayor refers to, of the planning commissions, etc., that's an opportunity for people to consolidate the plans and develop one vision for the city.
Yeah. You brought up the new Dube Trade Port. So, Deputy Mayor, I'd just like to get your perspective on how this the 60-year master plan is going to pan out. Because I mentioned in the beginning, it's referred to as an aerotropolis. The concept is around creating a city around an airport. So talk to us about that, the various components, and what the development plan is going to be.
The Dube Trade Port, we must also remember that the airport itself, when it was established, it was the first of its kind to be established in an environmental area where you find the environment not conflicting with what we try to do as the city, as also as the national government. So in terms of the new development plan that we have to make sure that we expand the Dube Trade Port, we believe that it's going to benefit a lot. And we also want to encourage the airlines to say that can they also increase the number of airlines that are coming to our city, and that's why we are proud that we'll be hosting the World Airlines organization in the 2016, James, that will be hosting that conference in our city, because we believe that we have something to offer to the world, and we have something to offer to our businesses. The expansion of Dube Trade Port is going to assist in terms of our own business people for their import and export in terms of the products that they have. So we believe it is a very good platform.
Yeah,
and
but you know, one of the issues that has been brought up is these industrial development zones, and of course the ministry has already acknowledged that there have been problems with them, that there hasn't been enough incentive for investors, there's been poor planning, lack of coordination between local governments, you know, government at a South African level, ministerial level. Taking all these type of comments into account, and of course further down the line when it comes to IDZs, this is of course a special economic zone. So yes. What are the plans to make sure that these issues are addressed, and I suppose specifically when it comes to incentivizing the private sector to invest in Dube?
I'm sure my colleagues will help me. We believe that as the city and the province in particular, because these are bigger projects, we are not only handling them as the city alone, but we have a very big partnership in terms of the national government, the provincial government, to assist us to make sure that the plan that we have to assist the business sector to leverage and get more out of the projects that we are putting in place. And as the city, we co-fund this project so that it can be speed up the process of development in the area.
James, you want to jump in there with some comments around incentivizing investment?
Well, Dube Trade Port is a classic example of a facility that is beginning to succeed. As a result of the facilities that are being provided, Dube Trade Port now has a major zone, a hotter house zone, where cut flowers are now being flown out on every evening to the markets of Amsterdam, producing special tulips. It's quite funny.
So we're making tulips here in South Africa and sending them to Amsterdam, the home of tulips.
Yes, and also producing various vegetable crops, tomatoes, cucumbers, which are being sent up to Johannesburg. So Durban is now becoming a major export for various forms, export market for various forms of agriculture. In addition to that, the industrial component of that aerotropolis is busy being rolled out. There's, for example, a major ball bearing facility that produces specialized ball bearings, which are going to be exported to various parts of Africa. In addition to that, the King Shark International Airport is beginning to prove its mettle. We now have routes into various African countries, into Lusaka. We've just opened a route into Harare. Air Mauritius has recommenced its operations out of Dube Trade Port, and then of course our routing into Mozambique. And what's exciting to note is that those routings are going to be expanded into countries of the like of Botswana, Namibia. There's even talk of a route being established between Kenya and Durban, so that that vision of the city and the province to be the trade gateway for Africa is more than being realized.
So it's, you know, very much the positioning here, as you say, with those route links, those flights into Africa, creating that connection there. So Graham, from a business tourism perspective right now, is that the tourists you're focusing on when you're upgrading, spending 220 million rand on the Elangeni and Maharani?
Yeah, the consolidation of the two hotels into one complex is all about remaining relevant, improving our delivery, and supporting the massive investment that has taken place on the Durban beachfront. The Elangeni and North Beach being consolidated into one property. We're trying to create and will create an aspirational hotel of choice to support all segments. The hotel complex will have 11 restaurants and bars, has 11 restaurants and bars. It's got magnificent conferencing facilities in both towers. So in support of what James was saying, you know, we can play in the smaller local and international meeting segments. And then, but more importantly, in support of all the infrastructure work that's going on, there's going to be a more and more economic injection into the city and more people coming to do business and to work and support these projects. So that's where our hotels will benefit. How
from, you know, a leading South African hotel chain, how are you going to ensure that that has positive knock-on effects in the value chain, I suppose, if you could call it that, the SME sector? Because we're talking about, you know, ensuring that you work with local businesses here. Yeah. So how do you see yourself fitting into that broader chain? Well, I can give you a practical example. Yeah. We have an enterprise development initiative called Sokosan Bucha Guest House. We have 9 guest houses in Durban that we support. These are amazing entrepreneurs who have been on this program for the last 6 or 7 years. They survived the worst trading period in the history of the hospitality industry in this country. They've survived. We support them both from a marketing point of view, administrative point of view, operational perspective. And so we have a vision of growing those businesses. We've got 9 currently in KZN, and we want to grow that by another 12 by the end of the year. And a lot of them will be in and around Durban and help promoting the spread of tourism into places like KwaMashu, Umlazi and Phoenix, etc., so that we can get the spread of the impact of this economic injection and growth and the knock-on effect, as you say, into the tourism industry and hospitality business, how that can spread out into other areas. Well, on that note, we're going to take a quick break now, and I'm just going to thank my first panelists for joining us today at Durban Indaba 2013. Of course, Graham Wood is the MD of Tourism, Clive Mankley, the head of the South African Chamber of Commerce, President rather, James Seymour, the KZN and Durban Convention Bureau, and Deputy Mayor Novuso Shabalala. Thank you so much for your time. As I said, we're taking a very quick break now. When we come back, we've got 4 new panelists joining us. Philip Sotole, who is the head of Durban Tourism, Akash Singh, the president of the Durban Chamber of Commerce, talking to us about that economic blueprint for the city. And then Janse van Vieren, he's joining us from Norton Rose. And then Linda Pampalas, the CEO of Thompson's Africa, to talk to us about tour operators and how they're positioning themselves in the Durban city. We'll see you after this 2-minute break.